the next thing we're going to do is, you'll notice here, what I really want to do is I set the class here to be content, but I haven't actually defined any classes. So in the head section, I'm going to add a style tag and say the type is CSS. And I'm going to add a class of style. And what the class I want to have in here is, instead, I want the images to be displayed 100%. So I'm going to say style is width is 100%. And this style here, where I have the auto size, that's going to be for everything that is in the content area, in this content area. So to create a class, using CSS, you just put a dot and give it a name, and I'm going to call it content, and then I put brackets, curly brackets, instead of style equals, and I don't need a quotation mark, so style equals is not needed. So you go content, curly bracket means styles equal, and then I list the attributes. In this case, the maximum width is 980 pixels, and the margin is going to be automatic. In fact, what I might do here, let me show you how I do the same thing here. I'd take the style out of here, and I would say that the class for this section is going to be the title. And so in here, I can say, oh, the title is equal to text align and font and so forth. So that just makes it a little bit easier and keeps the things I'm styling up in one convenient place. Okay, the next section that I want to work on is I need to have, I don't want to display all the pictures. And so I'm going to use some JavaScript. And I went and I found a good JavaScript for showing a slideshow, and I'm just going to copy it. And I'll just take it and copy it and stick that in my Photoviewer. And so here is the JavaScript. And so the script goes like this. Show divs is going to take a slide value. And if I go plus divs, my value of n, so it's going to add one more if it's plus. If I'm then going to open in the document window, and I'm going to open something with a class called My Slides. So what I need to do, and then it'll just display the next slide if I show the divs. So what I'm going to do is, in my echo statement here, I'm going to also give it a class name, and the class was called My Slides. So My Slides, and notice has to be letter per letter perfect, and this is inside an echo statement that I'm using double quotes, so I'll have to refer to this with single quotes. So the class is going to use My Slides, so it's going to use these this JavaScript down here, and it's going to load all those slides up in behind the screen, and only in the one document is it going to play just the one. I think that is correct. Let me just hit save, and we can refresh, and now you'll see that instead of displaying all the picture, we'll now need to put some buttons that are going to activate those slides to take place. So let's add those buttons for the slides to load up. Just making sure I called it the right thing. Yeah, must be correct. Okay, so the next area, so I'll go /div. So we've finished that division. And the next division is going to be the buttons. And for this, I'm going to say button. And I need to put some style. So again, because I'm going to use some of the same style that I used before, I'm not going to go style equals and list the style. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go up here to the style area, and I'll make a class for that style. So I'll make one style called the button class. And the button class, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a border is going to be none. Display is going to be inline block. The width, how wide do I want my button to be? I'll make it 80 pixels. And the height, I'll make it also 80 pixels. That sounds pretty good. So there you go. I've got my border and the styles for my button. I also want to have the button hover when you put your mouse over a button. So it's odd because I use the same class name, but I put colon and I put hover. And what that will do is it will make it so when my mouse hovers over the button, it's going to take on this attribute. The background color, I'll say of the button, is going to be maybe gray. And that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to have the non-hovered state. So I'll make another class called black. And my black state will be just the colors for when it's not hovered over. So it'll be black. And if we do go over it, the background, to give a good contrast with the other, will be the inverse, which will be white. Okay, so that's the blackness that I want to have on there. And then finally, I want to position this. And so I might as well say, come up with, I'll call it display left class. I'll add that class as well. And the left, where I want to put it is I want to have the position to be absolute. So I'll use absolute positioning. Oh, not potion. So I want the position to be absolute. And I want it to be at the top, maybe halfway down. So 50%. And then finally, I want the left side to be right at the left edge. So I'll say left 0%. And so that will position it absolutely halfway down and to the left 0%. Great. And I'm going to do the exact same for the right, but I'll call it display right. And for the right button, I'm going to call in this class called display right. But of course, I want it to be 0%, not from the left, but from the right. So those styles are good. So let's add these two buttons that we want to add here. So what I'm going to do for the button is I'll give it a class. And the class is going to equal button. It's going to equal black. And it's going to be display left. So that's the class. So it's going to use, at the title here, it'll use button, black, and display left. So the left button is going to use these three. And then it's going to need to call on the JavaScript. So I'm going to say on click. So when we click on it, it's going to equal plus divs minus 1. And then finally, I need to put a character. So I can use this character here. Another way to refer to characters, by the way, if I want to do another way to do that, I can also say display ampersand pound 10094. And that's another way, because sometimes it gets confusing. For this one it's fine, but if I was to do the other one, it's going to do the same as the closing part of the tag. So that does get a bit confusing. and then I go slash button. So there's button number 1 that's going to display left, and then I want to do the same for button that's going to do right. And so this button is going to display the right. On click, it's going to call the function in the JavaScript plus divs, but we're going to not subtract one, we're going to add one to it. And then finally, the character I want to display is a right angle bracket, which is character 0095. And there we're pretty well finished our program there. So let's just test it out and see how we're doing. And you'll see I've got buttons here, so it's going to load up and we'll cycle through here.